can buy one of BYD's vehicles, which already has some level of self-driving tech. BYD C-Line 7, and we're going to put this to the test to see if God's eye really is all-seeing and all-knowing.
For years, buying the cheapest electric car meant giving up the best technology. That trade-off became so normal that almost nobody questioned it. If you wanted advanced features, you paid thousands more. If you wanted to save money, you accepted getting less. Then BYD made one announcement that suddenly made the entire industry look very different. So were electric cars really that expensive to build? Or were we simply told they had to be? In February 2025, BYD announced that its God's Eye driver assistance system would be added across a wide range of its cars, and the detail that made the auto industry pay attention was where that technology was going. It was heading into affordable cars. Reuters reported that BYD planned 21 models with the system, including vehicles priced as low as 69,800 yuan in China, which was under $10,000 at the time. For most buyers, that number matters more than any technical term, because a car at that price is usually expected to be basic. It can be useful, efficient, and cheap to run, but nobody expects it to carry technology that car companies often use to sell more expensive versions. God's Eye is still driver assistance, and the person behind the wheel still has to pay attention. This is not a fully driverless car, and treating it like one would be misleading. But the announcement did something more practical than promising a robo-taxi future. It moved smart driving features into a part of the market where buyers had been trained to expect very little. That is where the pressure begins. For years, features like lane support, automated parking, smarter cruise control, and highway assistance helped push people toward higher trims and paid software packages. A buyer could start with the affordable version of a car, but the version with the best technology usually lived somewhere higher on the price sheet. BYD's announcement made that ladder look weaker, because once a low-priced car can carry advanced assistance technology, every expensive upgrade starts to feel less automatic. The question now was simple. How did BYD make something look standard while other brands still made it look premium? The answer starts with the way electric cars have been sold. Most EV buyers have learned to accept a familiar pattern. The base model gets attention because the price looks reachable, but the better version is the one that feels complete. A larger battery adds more money, faster charging adds more money, better software adds more money. The smarter safety and driving systems are often bundled into packages that make the final price climb far above the number that pulled the buyer in. That pattern did not appear out of nowhere. Electric cars were expensive to develop, and the early years forced automakers to spend heavily on batteries, factories, software, sensors, and new supply chains at the same time. When a company had to build a new platform and convince customers to trust a different kind of car, higher prices were easy to explain. The problem is what happens after the technology begins to mature. Some features remain expensive because they are still hard to build. Others remain expensive because they sit in the part of the lineup where companies make more money. Buyers do not always see the difference, because both things appear the same way on the window sticker. The feature is there, the price is higher, and the customer is told that better technology costs more. BYD disrupted that simple idea by moving the feature downward. A car near the bottom of the market suddenly became part of the smart driving conversation. That did not mean every system from every automaker was equal, because different companies use different hardware, software, sensors, and safety limits. But the buyer does not need every detail to understand the larger message. A technology category that looked expensive yesterday was being placed inside a much cheaper car today. That changes the emotional math of buying an EV. The buyer no longer asks only what the feature does. They start asking why it costs so much somewhere else. And once that question enters the market, it does not stay inside China. BYD could make that move because the company did not grow up like most of the automakers it now competes against. The company began in 1995 in Shenzhen as a rechargeable battery manufacturer. At the time, that sounded far away from the car industry, but batteries later became the most expensive and important part of an electric vehicle. Long before the global auto industry rushed into EVs, BYD was already learning how to build battery products at scale and push down cost without losing the ability to manufacture in huge numbers. That starting point gave BYD a different path into cars. Traditional automakers spent decades perfecting engines, transmissions, exhaust systems, and gasoline platforms. Those skills were valuable for a very long time, but the EV shift moved the center of the car away from the engine and toward the battery pack, the electric motor, power electronics, and software. Many legacy automakers had to buy more of that technology from suppliers or build new expertise while still supporting their old business. BYD entered the car business in 2003 after acquiring a Chinese automaker. And from there, it kept pulling more of the vehicle into its own operation. Batteries, power electronics, and core vehicle systems became part of the larger BYD machine. The company still uses suppliers where needed, but its control over key EV components gives it more room to manage cost than companies that depend on outside partners for the most expensive systems. This matters because every supplier adds a layer. When one company makes the battery, another makes the chips, another supplies the motor, and another handles electronics. Each part moves through its own pricing chain before the finished car reaches the buyer. That setup can be efficient when the supply chain works well, but it also makes every new feature pass through more hands before it reaches the customer. BYD built more of the chain inside one company, and that changes what becomes possible at scale. A small saving on a battery pack does not sound dramatic until it spreads across millions of cars. A shared software system becomes more powerful when it can move across a wider lineup. A motor or electronic platform becomes cheaper when the same engineering work supports many models instead of one. The public sees a low price at the end, but the price comes from thousands of small decisions made long before the car is announced. By 2024, BYD had become a manufacturing giant with more than 4 million vehicle sales and record annual revenue. That scale gave the company a weapon many rivals wanted but could not quickly copy, and the clearest example sat under the floor of the car. In 2020, BYD introduced the Blade battery, and its importance was easy to miss if you only looked at it as another EV battery. Most electric vehicle packs are built by grouping cells into modules, then placing those modules into a larger pack. The design works, but the extra layers take up space and add structure around the parts that actually store energy. BYD used long, narrow battery cells that fit more directly into the pack, almost like blades sliding into a tray, which helped the company use space more efficiently. That matters because empty space inside a battery pack is expensive. If an automaker wants more range, the simple answer is to add more battery. But extra battery adds cost and weight. A better layout helps the same vehicle use its space more intelligently. It does not make the battery cheap by magic, but it helps lower the pressure on cost, weight, and packaging. BYD also made the Blade battery part of a safety message that ordinary buyers could understand. The company promoted the nail penetration test, where a steel nail is driven through a charged battery cell to simulate serious damage. BYD says the Blade battery passed without smoke or flames, which gave the company a simple public story around safety at a time when battery fires were one of the fears many people had about EVs. That safety message mattered because a low-priced EV has to clear a dangerous hurdle. If the car feels cheap in a bad way, the low price becomes a warning sign. Buyers may assume the company cut corners somewhere important. BYD needed its affordable cars to feel serious enough that customers saw the price as value, not risk. The Blade battery helped support that image by giving the company a core technology it could point to again and again. That is why the God's Eye rollout landed with more force. BYD had already shown that it could take the most expensive part of an EV, build around it at scale, and use that foundation across many vehicles. Then it used a similar idea with driver assistance. Instead of keeping smart technology high in the lineup for as long as possible, BYD pushed it downward and made competitors look slower. The next problem belonged to everyone else. Legacy automakers cannot copy this move by simply holding a meeting and lowering the price tomorrow. Their businesses were built around different systems. Many have supplier contracts, older factories, dealer networks, software partnerships, and vehicle platforms that were never designed around this kind of fast technology rollout. They also have a pricing model that depends heavily on trims and packages. The base model brings the customer in, while the better equipped versions often carry more profit. That makes standard technology complicated. If a company gives too much to the cheapest car, the expensive version becomes harder to justify. But if it keeps too much locked away, BYD and other aggressive Chinese automakers make the cheaper car look more generous. The old ladder works best when everyone agrees that the best features belong higher up. BYD stepped onto the lower rung and brought some of those features down with it. China's EV market helped force that behavior. Competition there has become brutal, with frequent price cuts, fast model updates, and companies fighting for buyers who compare features closely. That environment can hurt profit margins, but it also forces technology to move faster. A feature that might stay premium for years in a comfortable market can become standard much sooner when every rival is trying to win the same customer. BYD turned that pressure into a sales message. It presented smart driving as something that should become common, closer to the path, followed by airbags, anti-lock brakes, backup cameras, and other features that once felt special before buyers expected them everywhere. Once a feature begins that journey, charging extra for it becomes harder each year. That is the deeper problem for the rest of the industry. The danger is not only that BYD can sell a cheaper car. The danger is that BYD can change what people think a cheap car should include. This pressure can travel even when the car does not. A BYD Seagull does not need to appear in every American or European showroom to affect what buyers expect from electric cars. People can see the comparison online. They can see a low-priced Chinese EV connected to smart driving technology, then look at a much more expensive model in their own market and wonder why similar features are still treated as upgrades. Some of those comparisons will be unfair. Different markets have different safety rules, tariffs, shipping costs, labor costs, software limits, and customer expectations. A car priced under $10,000 in China cannot simply land in another country at the same price. Driver assistance systems also differ in quality, hardware, reliability, and legal restrictions. So it would be wrong to pretend every system with similar features performs the same way. But buyer perception does not wait for a perfect spreadsheet. Once people see a cheaper car offering a feature they thought was expensive, the old price feels less certain. The customer may still buy the more expensive vehicle, but they now expect a better explanation. They want to know what they are paying for, and they become less patient with upgrades that feel like artificial walls. That is where BYD's announcement becomes bigger than one feature. It gives customers a new reference point. A budget EV can be more than basic transportation. It can include software, assistance features, and battery technology that make it feel connected to the future rather than left behind by it. For automakers, that is a hard shift to manage. If they respond by lowering prices, they protect market share but pressure profits. If they add more features as standard, they make buyers happier but weaken the value of expensive trims. If they wait too long, they risk looking outdated next to companies moving faster. BYD created a question every competitor now has to answer in public, even if they never say it directly. How much of the EV price is truly necessary, and how much survived because buyers had no better comparison? The answer will not be the same for every company. Some automakers really do have more expensive systems. Some have stricter testing standards, different sensor setups, higher labor costs, or more complex safety requirements in the markets they serve. BYD also benefits from China's enormous EV supply chain and a domestic market where electric competition is far more intense than in many countries. Those details matter because the story becomes weaker when it turns into a simple attack on every other automaker. The stronger point is more specific. BYD showed that advanced EV features can move down the price ladder faster when the company has scale, battery expertise, manufacturing control, and a market that punishes slow movement. That combination is difficult to copy, and it makes old pricing habits look more vulnerable. For buyers, that may be good news. Even people who never purchase a BYD can benefit when one company forces others to offer more value. Tesla price cuts, cheaper EV trims, better standard safety systems, and more aggressive software packages are all part of the same competitive pressure. When one company changes the reference point, the entire market has to move around it. This is why the announcement mattered so much. BYD did not need to prove that every EV should cost under $10,000. It only needed to prove that a low-priced EV did not have to feel stripped down. Once that idea enters the market, it becomes harder to remove. For years, buyers were told to climb higher if they wanted the smartest electric car features. BYD gave them a reason to look back down the ladder, and if customers start expecting more technology at the bottom, every automaker above it has a much bigger problem than one Chinese competitor. They have to defend the price of the future